Okay, welcome back. We are ACI Course 8, Class 5, April 6, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Studying karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with a strong intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Last class, we learned about those 6 sufferings of humans and worldly gods. Sufferings that are unique to those 2 kinds of beings. So the first one, no, there's no certainty, right? And lots of different levels of meaning of that. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends. Pleasure turns to pain. But mostly, we don't know when any of that change is going to happen. So the no certainty isn't so much the fact of all that change. It's like, we don't know when it's coming. Second one, we can't get no satisfaction. That struggle to get what we want and to avoid what we don't want, that just leaves us discontent anyway. Third one, we shed our bodies over and over. And it's like, well, every being does that. The suffering here is the fact that the karma that we make on behalf of this body goes with us, the body doesn't. And as humans, we somehow have this greater awareness of the can't think of the word, the absurdity of that situation. We take care of this thing, take care of this thing, take care of this thing, doing all kinds of unkind things to do so. And then the body ditches us and we get to keep the karma. It's a suffering for humans. Any being's going to have the same situation, but something special about that for humans and worldly gods. Then the opposite, we take birth over and over again. Like every being takes birth over and over again. But this ability, I guess, to be aware that the very nature of birth is illness, aging, death, and then we do it again, right? It's that, and then we're going to do it all over again. Part of this birth over and over. We somehow know that, and it's a unique suffering. That it happens. Right? It seems like an extra unique suffering that we can't make it stop just by hearing about it. Oh, that's stupid. I'll quit doing it. I wish it were so easy. Fifth, after high comes low. Same as uncertainty, same as we can't get no satisfaction, but specifically, we struggle, we get the improvement. We think that what we do to get the improvement is what's making the improvement. And so we expect it's going to last. And then guess what? I'm doing the same thing. How come I'm getting a different result? And then lastly, no companion. There's no companion. In the end, we lose everything and everybody. But deeper than that is, we are the sole experiencer of our karmic consequences. And we are the sole planter of the seeds that bring about those karmic consequences. Nobody can take our karma for us. Nobody can give us their good karma. It's no one but us can change us, can change this suffering. And in that way, right, we alone are the one responsible. That kind of no companion. So humans and worldly gods, similar. Worldly gods just on a much more subtle level, as we learned. So tonight's class is about the type of being called bardo being. Bardo being, like the B and the P sound in English are very separate, but like in French, you can hardly tell them apart. So it's more like the French B or P, pardo. I can't really say it well. Pardo. For this class, we are back studying from the commentary to the Abhidharma Kosha, the commentary called the String of Jewels, if I have that right, by the first Panchen Lama. What's his name? Gelwa Gendin Drup. I had to look. Tarlam Selje. So here's the word bardo, but here's what it sounds like to me when Geshe Michael says it. Bardo. The bardo is the the in-between. Wait, I need to put something else in here. Sometimes it's called Barsi. Barsi. Which would mean the life in between. So the bar means in between. And the bardo means being in between. And what the bardo being is in between is the death of their last life, the end of their last life, and the beginning of their next one. And it's like, well, if they're dead, but not yet reborn, what the heck are they? Where are they? Who are they? Right? Talking about somebody else. But then it's going to be me someday. Right? In between this one and the next one, what happens? So the Parsi refers to this lifetime in between. And when I say lifetime, it's not going to be like we think of a human lifetime. But it is a whole experience of entering into it, staying in it for a while, and then passing out of it. So it is called a lifetime as a bardo being. So the being themselves is called the bardoa. So we have, it's not the place, but the experience happening is the bardo. The Parsi is the one who's there doing it. Well, the lifetime in which it's happening, excuse me, the Pardoa is the being that's experiencing it. Got it? They have a nickname. The nickname is Trisa. Trisa. It's spelled D-R-I-S-A, but the D is one of those Tibetan letters that you can't quite tell the difference between a D and a T. So when you hear Geshe say it, it sounds like Trisa. But if you listen carefully, you can hear the D in there too. And then the I is like a long E. So for my own pronunciation, I make it up according to English. What is that called? Phonetics. Jisa. And it means smell eater. Apparently, what's the sustenance of a bardo being is fragrances, odors. They don't need to eat the solid food. They just need to smell something, and it sustains them. And I don't really know anything more than that, but there's anyway, Teresa, sometimes they're called. So Geshe shares with us that there are many teachings on the Pardo. Gelugpa's claim that they are mostly corrupted in some way, meaning misunderstood and probably mistranslated. And so our tradition says, don't bother with those instructions on the Pardo from other teachings, which is kind of like breaking a vow, to be honest with you. They do seem to work. Particularly, they're talking about there's a text called the Bardo Todral, which is the liberation on hearing. It's become fairly popular or common anyway in the West. And they use it to read as prayers for the dying or recently deceased. as an instruction manual for what that mind can follow to help them find a good rebirth. And so our tradition says those teachings are corrupted. That's the word he uses, meaning they've been misunderstood or rewritten or something added to them, so no longer authentic. And so we are counseled not to use them. But that said, people use them and they get the signs that the one they're praying for got the message. So, just put that on one shelf for later. The Abhidharma Kosha and this commentary that we're studying from is information collected from the Buddha Sutras and is said to be authentic and unchanged. So we can rely on what's written in those two texts, but they are not practice text. They are not texts for how to use it for somebody who's passing away. They are texts for understanding what the heck this process called the Pardo is. Geshe-la reiterates that our job is to learn the teachings in an authentic way so that we can use them appropriately. And then if and when we are going to pass them on, we want to pass them on authentically as well. And then if you have experience, right, in whatever it is you are teaching authentically, you are very welcome to share. This is my experience. This is what I've used. This is the apparent result that I got from what I used. But we always add, but the scripture says this, right? Separate your own personal experience from the scriptural tools that we've been given so that the lineage can pass on purely. There are more teachings and practices about the Pardo that come to us in the Diamond Way coursework that are authentic and are useful and helpful. They're not so much about helping a dying person get through the Bardo. It's how you utilize your own Bardo. And that will come to us when we get there. All right. So how our Bardo was born. They are born Zuke, miraculously, meaning complete, born complete. Once you're born into your Pardo being, you are full on. It's not that you're a Bardo baby with Bardo mom and dad. Just you're there. In a sense, becoming a Bardowa means you have taken a rebirth of sorts, but not through a mother, not through another being. And they actually don't call it a rebirth. And we'll see why shortly. But, what else can you call it? Then you've died from this life, and now you have this next set of experiences. You have been reborn in a sense. And what happens is that we take a series of very brief rebirths, moving us through this stage called the Pardo. that culminates in taking the rebirth that the projecting karma at the end of the previous lifetime is pushing us towards. So that projecting karma pops, and with it a whole string of others. Like, I think of it as trailing behind it, but that's not really accurate. That are the power that's propelling us towards the whole next life that those seeds are going to delineate us being. And it takes change for that to happen, right? Change, 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 until the new change is, let me say, solidified, although that's not quite right, into the whole next life. That process somehow happens like within certain periods of time. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we'll talk about that process of moving through the Pardo later in this class. I'm supposed to first tell you about how Master Vasubandhu approaches giving us tools that we can use to prove to ourselves that there are such things as bardo beings. So if we prove to ourselves that there are such things, we would have to admit that we're proving to ourselves that we could experience that ourselves. And he uses two different methods, the usual two, Rikpa and Lung. Rikpa means using logic, clear thinking to come to a conclusion. Lung means using scriptural authority to prove our case. Really, we're trying to prove our case to ourselves more than anybody else, so that we can better influence our own behavior choices because of our understanding of what happens at the end of this life in which we have understood that, oh my gosh, my behavior choices create my future. Like, we don't have any guarantee that we will remember that, know that in our next life, unless we keep our bodhisattva vows really well, especially those black and white deeds that increase the likelihood of a seed popping that will push us into a human life surrounded by the Dharma, so we can learn it as, 4-year-olds instead of waiting until you're 35 or however old you were. So the logic, he gives two reasonings, and Geshe-la didn't share it like a logic syllogism. He gave these two statements. Dru Gyun means the stream or the continuum of a grain, of a piece of grain. So one reasoning for there needing to be a being in between, between the death of this life and the birth of the next life, is that in the same way that a piece of grain must happen in a continuum to become the plant that produces another grain, in that same way, the being, the mind of a being, is like the piece of grain that has to go through a continuum of change in order to become the result, if you will. So a kernel of corn has to get moisturized and swell and sprout, the first little sprout, and that sprout has to grow into a seedling, and that seedling has to grow into the stalk, and the stalk has to grow into the, whatever that gets pollinated to become the corn. That's all happening in a continuum, is it not? So the kernel of corn becoming the mature corn plant that can produce more corn happens in a continuum. And the analogy is, and so does our mind. You can't just go from kernel of corn to ear of corn. You can't just go from dead me to reborn me without something happening in between. Got it? Drew Gyun, it's called. The second explanation, Rikpa explanation, is Chela Jungwa. Chela means to cut off the continuum, Jungwa. This one is sort of a negative argument because it says that you can't just cut the continuum. The continuum can't be cut in the sense that if your last life ended in Tucson and your projecting karma is projecting you to be born as a street dog in New York City, it takes a continuum for that mind to get to New York City. And it's like, wait a minute, right? So there's a New York City with a mom dog, waiting there for somebody's mind to get there. It's like we learn, come on, it doesn't happen like that. And yet, well, first of all, recall the school we're studying from. For that school, yes, it does happen like that. There is a New York City with dogs, not pregnant yet, that are going to get pregnant, and my mind can be in one of those. It's not that somebody else is stuffing you into the little dog body. Your own mind is going to stuff you. But if your mind dies in Tucson, New York is a long way away. You have to get there. Your mind has to get there, right? It feels a little absurd. It's like, vit, 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 vit. How come it takes time to get there? But if you think about it, it's like, it does take a certain number of 65 per instant shifts to even shift Tucson, which is gone by the time I'm dead. For me, Tucson's gone. To shift into dog mom in New York City. And in that period of time, it's not that I'm just sitting there waiting for it to happen, right? The mind is shifting. It's in this continuum that can't just shut off here and start up over there. There has to be a continuum. And that thing called the continuum, whatever experience is going on, that's what we mean by the pardo. right? So it's not a place, it's kind of a state of mind, but more it's a state of being that's the transition between one manifestation and another manifestation, right? So these two arguments, the grain has to go through its stages to become the new thing, and the mind doesn't get cut off here and start up over there without having a continuum to get there. It's like, how is that a proof? And Geshe concedes that probably it's not a proof that you could give to somebody who's not interested, and that they would hear it and go, oh yeah, you're right, right? But once you have had a direct experience of a Bardo being, right, your own or someone else's, and then you allow anybody to try to prove that there's no such thing, they won't be able to prove to you that your direct experience was incorrect. So sometimes these reasonings, like, they're more accurate, once you know they are true, like that's illogical. But then you use them sort of in reverse to see if you can disprove your personal experience. And if you can, then that personal experience was was a valid but incorrect experience. Right? And then it's like, well, you say direct experience is like direct. Yeah, but it has to be direct, accurate, correct, valid, all these qualifications. Anyway, two of many logics that there are such things as Bardo was. Then he says, wait. Oh, in the reading, you'll see someone must say to Master Vasubandhu, and now wait, let me give you a totally analogous example to show that it's not necessary for there to be this continuum of mind to get from one place to the other. So they're trying to disprove that continuum argument as proof for Bardo. And they say, look, an image in a mirror can continue to be in the mirror, whether the object that's reflecting in the mirror is close up or far away, right? This is saying it's not necessary to have this continuum to go from Tucson to New York City, because whether you're in Tucson or New York City, you still have the image in the mirror. And they say that's totally analogous to this Bardo being needing a continuum. It doesn't. It doesn't matter how far or close. And Master Vasubandhu's answer is, actually, that's not a completely analogous argument, which if it were, it could disprove something. But he says it's not, because we're not talking about the image in the mirror being continuous. We're talking about the one who's doing in front of the mirror, and that one is continuous, right? That one's still there, whether it's here or over here. It's the thing that's reflecting in the mirror. So even though you could say it doesn't need a continuum, because you could go, now there's a close-up image in the mirror. Now there's no image in the mirror. Now there's a far away image in the mirror. And you don't need the continuum. It's just there and then not there and then there again. And Master Vasubandhu says, yeah, but the thing in the mirror is not the thing. So the Bardowa, the mind that is the Bardowa, that the arguer was saying, see, it could be here, blink out, and show up here. Because in the same way an image in a mirror can blink out and show up differently. He goes, that's not analogous at all. Because you're talking about the image in the mirror, and I'm talking about the thing that is being imaged. Completely different. And that thing, when it goes out of the mirror, right, is still going along until it gets over here and then shows up in the mirror again. There is too a continuum. Ta-da, believe in Bardos now? Me neither. Put it on the shelf. Highest school, of course, says ultimately everything is projection, shifting, shifting, shifting. Even the learning about what happens during the shifting called dying, dead, pause, reborn. Okay. All of that is shifting, shifting, shifting projections. And so something is happening. When we say, oh, it's just projections, it does not make it not real. It, in fact, makes it real, makes it happen. Okay. It's karmic seeds ripening that force us to see ourselves taking a Bardo body, usually multiple times, that will then force us to experience our Bardo body taking a rebirth. And it's all suffering, and it comes from causes that have within them the ignorance of what makes it happen in the first place. So it doesn't have to be, does it? Nice. So then Master Vasubandhu gives us scriptural proof, a couple of them. Scriptural proof meaning quoting from a Buddha sutra. The first one he speaks to is the Tsipa Dun Dempe Do. Tsipa Dun Dempe Do means the teachings on the 7 kinds of beings. So Sipa means kinds of beings. Dun is the number 7. Tempe is teachings, and Do is teachings of the Buddha book, short book. Short. A teaching by the Buddha. Mm. In that sutra, says Master Vasubandhu, Buddha taught there are 7 kinds of beings, and one of them is Bardoas. So now, do you remember back in course 4, I think it was, when we went through the reasoning of Buddha being one who has turned correct. And we were supposed to be using that to show ourselves that what it is to be Buddha is to be a being who cannot hear oneself, be aware of oneself, think, say, or do anything that's incorrect, anything false. So that means an omniscient being can't hear themselves say something that's wrong or mistaken or left out, right? They are having direct experience, and it has to be both valid and correct. And then as we study the teachings, it's like, well, there sure seems to be contradictions in here. And we will end up studying about what do we do with that when we're studying from a being that we've showed ourselves cannot say anything in error. And then they say two different things at two different times that contradict each other. Eek, right? So if we've shown to ourselves beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything Buddha teaches is accurate, then when Buddha says there are 7 kinds of beings and one of them is a Bardua, that right there is proof to the one who's established Buddha as omniscient. It's proof for that being, not for anybody else. So really only we can ourselves can use scriptural authority as proof. Unless you know the person you're trying to use it for has also come to the conclusion that anything Buddha taught is correct. It's slippery. Like, we won't want these arguments to be like cut and dried, black and white, and doggone it, they never are. Where's that coming from? Oh, man. So, Buddha said so. So they must be. Not allowed to just say that without having proof to ourselves that it's valid and correct to say, because Buddha said so. Got it? There's another teaching Buddha gave. I don't have the name, but I have these 3 factors. In that teaching, Buddha was talking about the 3 conditions that are necessary for a being to enter a womb for a womb birth. So remember, we learned that 4 kinds of births, and one of them is birth from a womb. And then it's like, oh, that's humans, some reptiles, some fish. Don't know about other realms, but you're not born from a womb as a hell being, and I don't think you're born from a womb as a hungry ghost, and it does not appear to be that you're born from a womb into that desire realm form being, nor the formless realm. So it seems like it's animals and humans that have the opportunity for womb birth, and that's who he's talking about. So these 3 conditions that are necessary, the first one is Marung Datsen Den. Marung Datsen Den. The Datsen Den means possesses the sign of the month a being who possesses the sign of the month. It's the way that they mean a menstruating woman. So Marung Datsun Den means there has to be, like present, existing, a woman who's still menstruating. First condition for birth from a womb. Makes sense. Second condition for birth from a womb is Pama Chakshing Trepa. Pama Chakshing Trepa. Pama means the parents. Pa and ma, right? Parents. Chakshing Trepa. Shing means and. So chak and trepa. Chak means desire and trepa make contact. So their second condition is that the man and the woman, the male and the female, have desire and make contact, meaning have sexual contact, have union. That has to happen. Third one, drisa newar nepa. Newar nepa means to be in the immediate vicinity. And drisa is that nickname for a bardo being, meaning a odor eater, a smell eater, drisa. So Lord Buddha has said in his explanation of 3 conditions necessary for a being to take birth from a womb is that there must be a menstruating female, there must be man, woman, have desire and make sexual contact, and there must be one of these bardo beings nearby. So even if we didn't learn anything more about what does he mean by all that, the fact that Buddha gave this explanation and said there has to be a bardoa nearby in order for a being to take birth in a womb says, see, another place. Buddha, the omniscient Buddha who can't say anything wrong, has told us that there is such a thing as bardoas who then take birth into wombs. And it's like, do we know beings who take birth from a womb? Yes. Well, this is how it happened. This is where it came from. So Geshe-la went on to explain, that what's happening in this situation. That the bardo being the bardo being is on this trajectory to their next life, right? Driven by the projecting karma and all its attendants. And that being's experience is that they see somewhere nearby something occurring that looks fun and attractive. Who knows what it is? It's not the same as what the ma pa ma are seeing, but the Trisa is attracted to what's going on there, and their perception is that they can join. Like they see a baseball game going on. Oh, can I come play? Right? Or they see a picnic. Can I come? Right? And they get attracted. And as their karmic seeds are shifting, suddenly it shifts into being in this confined, dark place. And what it is that they are now, their karmic seeds have shifted and they are now this in the womb. I don't know whether they realize they're in a womb yet, but their karmic seeds shift until they are ripening this being in a womb, and they're trapped there until they're pushed out of it. So the ma and pa, they're having their own experience. Right. Consistent with everybody's seeds ripening in their own way. Right? So again, this is used partly to describe what's happening at womb births and partly to describe the fact that Buddha demonstrates that there are such things as bardo beings by way of this explanation, okay, for womb birth. Whew. Okay. The next example that he gives from scripture is a teaching that Buddha gave called Bardor Dawa. It's not the name of the sutra, but it's a topic that Buddha spoke about. Bardor Dawa. Bardo means the bardo state, like being in the bardo state, not like Kansas, but that state of mind. Dawa is another word for gone beyond. So it's another word for nirvana, dawa. So Buddha gave a teaching at one point that said, of the 5 states from which you can enter nirvana, bardo is one of them. Interesting. So again, another example of Buddha stating the existence of the bardo. Not saying, you know what, the bardo exists. He's talking about reaching nirvana. And he says, one of the places you can get to nirvana from is your bardo. End of this life, before rebirth. Son of a gun, detour to nirvana. Wish it was that easy. Geshe-la said very quickly, don't misunderstand and think that you can wait until you're dead to reach your nirvana. Like, that's a big gamble. Unless you have so many seeds for nirvana that one of them has to be the one that pops. Right? Otherwise, don't risk it. Reach your nirvana while you're still living. Okay. Then Master Vasubandhu, someone must say, well, but wait a minute. We've learned that with the 5 immediate misdeeds, you immediately go to the worst hell realm. So how can you say that there's always a bardo if with one of those misdeeds, it seems like it's saying the instant you're dead in the lifetime in which you did one of those, boom, the next instant you're in that awful hell realm. It sounds like it's saying there's no lifetime between the one in which you did the deed and the hell realm that's coming next. And that is true. There's no additional rebirth with the seeds of the misdeed hanging out waiting to ripen. But it's not true that you don't take the bardo time to get there. because it still takes this shifting set of seeds to go from dead to hell being. Now, how long does it take? Probably not long. But there is still a Bardoa existence in between. It's that there's nothing that can divert you. There's nothing that can happen that will change your direction. And where you're headed, because of the power of the misdeed, is that worst hell. Now, they say there really isn't anything that can change your direction, to any next life from the bardo. Although then they say, well, but if a strong practitioner does prayers for the recently deceased, those prayers can impact the mind, and that impact can help them in this direction that they're going for their next lifetime, and you can have an impact on them. My own personal experience is that you can have an impact, but the tradition is you can't. And I can see why it would be presented that way. Partly because our human tendency would be, oh, then I'll just rely on my bardo and my friends saying the prayers for me, and then I don't have to work so hard in this life. I just set it up that my friends will read for me my directions, and then I'll reach the clear light then. And that's only going to work if we've got these extraordinary good seeds from having lived an extraordinarily kind, helpful, wise life. And that would mean that we wouldn't be being a lazy practitioner that's relying on our friends saying prayers for us. We would be setting up the likelihood of those prayers working. Do you see? So it's like, just we would misunderstand what it is to change direction in the bardo. So they say don't count on it, because it is rare for it to happen. So let me do one more thing on this topic before we take our break. Geshe-la asked, why doesn't Master Vasubandhu just say, I've seen the bardo? Right? He's an Arya. When you come out of your Arya making experience, it's one of the things that you now know is true. So why doesn't he just say, I've seen it? Does that make it true beyond a shadow of a doubt for Master Vasubandhu and any other Arya? Yeah. But does that make it true beyond a shadow of a doubt for me? No. Right? I would have to have already established that being telling me that cannot lie, cannot be trying to influence me in the wrong way, right? Believing it is one thing, like really holding that conviction deep down is another, because what if that person that I so believe, anything they say is true, and then 10 years later, they do something, I don't know, that hurts me so badly that everything gets negated. And it's like, now I don't believe what they said. And it's like, what happens to all that belief that I had before? It suddenly shattered. So to prove to ourselves something and then have a direct experience of it, you don't then use that to say, see, honey, right, to our spouse or somebody, it has to be true for you too. Because until they have the direct experience of it, there's nothing we can say that will prove it to them. That they couldn't lose when their seeds shift, yeah. So he doesn't ever say, I've seen it, so I know it to be true. Okay, now let's take a break. Next, Master Vasubandhu talks about the nature of the bardo. He describes that a bardo being's body is made of very, very subtle matter. And their appearance is that of the being that they are going to be next. So it's curious because the text will say they look like the being that comes before, which sounds like in English means where you came from. But what it means in the Tibetan syntax is what's before you, right? So you look like the being that's before you, meaning the one you're headed to. So by the time that this life's mind projections have ended and the projecting karma has popped, followed with all its attendants, you already look like the being that you're headed to become. But like, to whom do you look like that? Well, to yourself mostly. And apparently to any other being in the bardo who's headed in that same kind of rebirth. So Bardoas headed to a hell realm can apparently see each other. And they look like charred pieces of wood. And it's like, yeah, but a living charred piece of wood, I don't know. And then beings who are headed to their hungry ghost lifetimes, they're said to be translucent, like watercolor. So somehow they can still be seen, but they're clear. And then animals are said to be smoky colored. So like a gray, I guess, And then humans are golden color and have the appearance of 5 or 6 years old. So the bardo is headed for human rebirth, right? They look like little kids. Curious. Desire realm devas, same. Golden colored, 5, 6 years old. Pleasure beings in the form realm are colored white. They have an adult appearance and they're clothed. So, adult what? I know my mind assumes they look like a superhuman, right? We've heard that they're really, really big and they live a long time, but like a superhero. But I don't really know. Either way, they're white and adult. Then what do you suppose the formless realm being looks like? No form. There's no form there. So they don't look like anything. They don't have a color because they don't have a shape. Wait a minute. Right? They have movement of the mind, and that's all. Which means, does a being who's headed for the formless realm even need a bardo time? No, because they don't have anywhere to go. Their formless realm being is where their last life that projected them into that ended. That's where their formless realm will be. So they don't need this continuum to get there. They're already there. Projecting karma, formless realm being done. Okay. Now, there's a lifespan for our bardo being. And there's apparently debate about it. I don't know what that debate is. But what's most widely accepted is that it takes 7 human days for this stream of karmic shifts to move us into, through, and out of a given bardo lifetime, a given time frame for the shifts that are happening. So that apparently can happen 7 times. So the maximum stay in a bardo is 49 days, apparently, 49 human days. And every 7 days, that being experiences another kind of death and another kind of projecting, right? It's like, it's not a new projecting karma, because we just learned you can't start out going to a hell realm and then detour over to some other realm. So it's not that you get a new projecting karma, but it's like your projecting karma gets a reboot and it gets boosted every 7 days. So the bardo, what it is to be the bardo being, is that you are compelled to your next lifetime, your next rebirth. It's like that's all that you're about, is getting to that place or that state of shift. And we can think of it as that bardo being is like looking. Is it there? Is it there? Is it there? And when you use the bardo todral, for instance, or other instructions for the dying, you're reading to them prayers about, if you see this, don't go there. Don't be attracted to that. If you see this, be attracted to that. Right? It's these instructions, because things appear in certain ways, but then when the bardo being gets there, the appearance shifts to something else. And so, right, if you don't know the code when you're in the bardo, you'll be attracted to, I don't know, a big, beautiful Greek temple. Oh, I think I'll go there. And then when you get inside the Greek temple, oh my gosh, suddenly you're a hungry ghost realm, and there's no Greek temple at all. Something like that. I'm just pulling an example, right? Not from scripture, but just out of my understanding. So every 7 days, if the mind has not found its next, right, place, it does this death and rebirth into another bardo and keeps looking. Something about the momentum means you will find your next rebirth within those 49 days. And the prayers that are used to direct that being are there are certain ones used on the first day, which means the day that the mind leaves, the day you die. And then there are prayers for the 7th day after that. And then prayers for the 49th day after that in our tradition. So it's like there's some special window of opportunity in the first 7 days. And then it repeats every 7th day until the 49th. It's like, if you're still waiting for a rebirth at the 49th, give them this powerful instruction. They got to find someplace by 49. I don't know what happens to you if it doesn't. Like, it's not like you are going to disappear. It's that you will have found rebirth by 49 days, according to this tradition. So if you're thinking of somebody who died a long time ago and we're wondering, are they still in the purgatory or someplace, or have they taken rebirth? This tradition would say, within 49 days is less than 2 months, they got reborn somewhere. So, you could kind of figure, like I do it for my parents. It's like, there'd be somebody in their 40s right now, and then it's like, that makes me go, wait a minute, all of you 40-year-olds, it's like, hey, but, whether that's true or not, who knows? Anyway, but there is something about every 7th day up to 49. Now, who can see the bardos? I already said that similar bardoas can see similar bardoas. There's this term called Lai Chen, the eye of a god. We actually heard it in the Diamond Cutter Sutra when Lord Buddha is saying to Subhuti, what do you think, Subhuti? Does the Buddha have the eyes of flesh? Yes, of course. Does he have the eyes? The eye of God was one of them. It's a certain power of vision through which one can perceive, not with the eyeballs, but with this eye of God, beings that are beyond normal human perception. And the Bardo beings are part of that category of beings that one can see. The eye of God is mainly happening during deep meditation. So it's during deep meditation that you actually perceive these other beings if your eye of God is activated. No doubt that could go on to be activated while you're not in meditation, but that would get a little bit disconcerting, right? If you're seeing all these other realms at the same time you're trying to drive on the freeway. Cashless share. There are 11 conditions that prevent us from getting the eye of God. And there are 11 obstacles to deep meditation that if we removed those obstacles, we would have the eye of God. I have no idea what those obstacles are. Like, I could guess, but he never taught the 11. You could ask him. Okay. So now someone asked, I don't know if it's from the scripture or if somebody asked Geshe Michael, what about the tulkus? No, the tulkus are the Tibetan word for a reincarnate lama. So for instance, when Ken Rinpoche manifested passing away, because he had been abbot of the monastery, that meant that his rebirth could be recognized, right, as the new version of Ken Rinpoche. And then, they go looking for that being once the original has, or the previous one has passed. And within a certain period of time, they get clues, they get directions, they go to try to find them. They identify, sometimes more than one, and then they take the belongings, like the ritual items of the one that's passed, and mix it with other ritual items, and they show it to the young child. And if the child picks out, right, how the child behaves around the ritual items, gives clues, and they look for all these clues, and finally they have enough evidence to suggest that we've found the new incarnation of who was Geshe Lobsang Tarchen. And then they go to His Holiness to ask to confirm it. And then if it gets a thumbs up from His Holiness, then that child is invited to the monastery and then cared for and educated and prompted, right, to become a teacher and pick up where the incarnation left off. But this term choku, it really means an emanation of enlightened being. I'll write it here. It didn't come from part of this class. Choku. It really means an emanation of enlightened being, a Buddha. And an emanation of a fully enlightened being just spontaneously is wherever any being's karmic seeds ripen them to see them, to be aware of them. So Buddha's emanations are happening everywhere. Just, I see the fly, I don't see the Buddha's emanation. Right? The fly could be Buddha's emanation. Or Buddha's emanation could come looking like, this glowing angel of light. Yeah. But it's spontaneous and effortless on the part of the Buddha. And it's totally dependent on the observer of them as to what they see. So in that regard, a choku, you don't have to talk about bardo time and death of the previous body, right? It doesn't apply to Buddha's emanations. But they use the same term for a reincarnation of a High Lama, like implying that High Lama was Buddha. And now their reincarnation is just one of their many emanations. But then it gets a little bit mixed up, right? With whether, anyway. I think they do it on purpose for our good seeds to help us become more aware of Buddha's emanations. All right, so Bardoas, they cannot be diverted from the rebirth they're headed to, with the exception of someone who's on the way to a form realm is someone who can apparently divert to a nirvana instead. And I don't know if that means by way of somebody else's prayer influence or by way of their high, keen level of awareness of what's going on while they are in the bardo, right? Which if you had significant meditative concentration ability, enough to be sending you to a form realm rebirth, you might have enough concentration ability, even as your mind stream in the bardo, to realize that's what's going on and use it to go to nirvana instead of form realm. But it is not the case for any other headed for rebirth, that we will have the meditative concentration to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm a bardo being headed for a hell realm and I don't want to go there, so I will divert myself. Like, we don't have the capacity by way of the seed that ripened us in the moment. We won't be able to do that. It's not like Buddha decreed, once you're headed to a hell realm, you can't get redirected. It's that the way the karmic seeds are ripening make it such that, right, once those are ripening, that's where we're going to go. They say a bardo being who is headed to a lower realm than the one that they left, they will be traveling head down, meaning traveling upside down. It doesn't matter what direction they're going, right? Their feet are up, their head is down. A being who's going to a higher rebirth than the one they left is traveling head up. And it's like, who knows who's going to see that? I don't know. But remember, in the wheel of life, you've got your center core with the snake, the rooster, and the pig. And then outside of that, there's a ring where half the beings are headed down and half the beings are headed up. This is what they're talking about. You are driven upside down or right side up towards a next life. And so you're just compelled until the change happens. And you are experiencing hell being, or experiencing hungry ghost being, or experiencing in a womb, forming to be pushed out, or in an egg, forming to be pushed out and then have to crack open, or to be warmth and moisture, whatever that feels like. Apparently, that time, 7 days, from 0 to 49 days, that being is sustained by odors. I don't understand why they need to be sustained by anything, but that's why they're called odor eaters. Mm-hmm. So Geshe-la explained that events happen as we die. The elements that make up our physical bodies are, they call it collapsing or dissolving. But what it means is that the karmic seeds ripening us to have those elements are no longer ripening. So if we don't ripen seeds for earth element, we can't experience any earth element, and the solidity of the experience of a solidity of our body stops, and we can't move. And then the fluidity dries up, and then the heat blows away, and then even the blowing away comes still, and then other stuff happens as well. And it's painful, and it's disconcerting, and it's frightening for most of us. So unless we're highly trained in those experiences, when they start, which is well before actually being dead, our state of mind is chaotic. The likelihood of being able to control what we're thinking about is remote for most untrained people, most non-meditators especially. And then by the time you get to the point where the physical body is declared dead, your mind withdrawal still has several states of withdrawal to happen before the mind actually gets completely free of projecting what was this physical body. And then it's at the moment that that mind gets finally completely free of projecting what was this physical body. That's the moment that the next karma that ripens is the one that's going to start the process in the bardo towards the next rebirth that karmic seed characterizes. So if that state of mind, by the time it's at the subtlety of going through those last few dissolutions, is in this terrified state or angry state, which is another possibility, fearful, angry, clinging to more of what I knew, right? Different states of mind that could be ripening. It's not me, Sarani, so afraid. That's too concrete. It's very subtle movement of the mind. And whatever one is there at the end of this life, the next moment is likely to be similar. And that becomes the projecting karma. A projecting karma of anger, hatred, violence, hell realm. Disrespect, dullness, stupidity, animal. Stinginess, clinging, craving, I want more, don't let me go. Hungry ghost. And that propels us towards the whole next circumstances called me and my life, but with a completely different understanding of the me and the my life than it was before, right? Which is why we're learning about all of this. And of course, we're going to end up talking about Jetsun Kappa's death meditation and how to live in such a way that that process of the withdrawal will have nothing to worry about because we have already done massive purification and planted huge amounts of goodness seeds so that it's like, great, whatever ripens at that moment of death, it's all going to be okay. It's going to keep me on my path. That's where we're going towards the end of this class. Of course, we still have a little bit more to learn about what it is to survive in this desire realm before we can take up that practice of death awareness and use it to change our seeds significantly enough that there's nothing to worry about anymore. Okay, so again, I'm finished early And so I'm happy to stay for questions. I'm also happy to let you out early, and I will put the extra minutes in the bank. I'm back up to almost 30 minutes because I had used them up. So remember that being that we wanted to be able to help. We've learned a lot that we may or may not ever tell them about. We don't really need to. We use it to change our own seeds, to become a being who can help them change their own seeds, so they can help others change their own seeds. And that's such a great, great goodness. That please be happy with yourself, even though this class is kind of disturbing. Just the willingness to hear about it, to study it. That's a great goodness. And so think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, and the wisdom that propels it. And may it be so. Okay. So thank you again. We'll have class on, where are we? We're Sunday. We'll have class on Thursday, but then not until May something. I told you already, right? Did I? Not until May. First. Okay, this week, Thursday, and then not till May 1st. Okay,
Miss Ernie, can I ask a question?
you sure may. Do you want me to keep it on recording or no?
No.
Okay.